Ready to drive your career, not just ride along? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I'm Simone E. Morris, your host and career strategist, here to give you the roadmap. Each week, we're cutting through the noise with strategies, stories, and insights to get you back in control. Your career clarity starts right here. Welcome to this week's episode of the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I'm giddy like a little kid about today's guest. I've been a fan for a while, and you'll learn why soon. But let's start with her bio. Goldie Chan, dubbed the Oprah of LinkedIn, which I love, audience, is an innovative LinkedIn top voice, author of Personal Branding for Introverts, and the founder of Warm Robots, an award-winning social strategy agency. She's a Forbes alum, cancer survivor, and global keynote speaker with nearly 500,000 followers across platforms. She helps Fortune 500s and creatives build lasting community and culture through brand storytelling. Known for her warmth and strategy, Goldie's work spans major business campaigns, Archie comics, and cozy product experiences. She lives in sunny Los Angeles with her very happy plants. So obviously, audience, she has a green thumb. My mother would be excited. Goldie, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. And I think you can see maybe in the corner some of my plants. So
Yes, 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 yes. When you watch this on YouTube, you'll be able to see Goldie's plants. Yes, awesome, Goldie. So first of all, when I see the word Oprah, I feel like I have to take a detour. I knew where I was going, but I see dubbed the Oprah of LinkedIn. So tell me where that name came from and and do you own it? Do you own it? This
right.
title.
Right. So I think it's so first of all, I don't take it very seriously because if I took that incredibly seriously, I'd be a different kind of person. But that title came from a Huffington Post article where
Hmm.
they called me the Oprah of LinkedIn. And the reason why they called me that, so backing up one other step, is between 2017 to 2019-ish, I made over 800 daily consecutive videos on
Wow.
LinkedIn. And most of these were I made them myself, I edited them myself, I learned how to edit, and created them every single day. So not a single 24-hour period passed without me posting an edited video. Or in the beginning, I didn't know how to edit. So quite frankly, they were kind of unedited videos. But, we learn along the way. And because of that, I got called the Oprah of LinkedIn, especially because I'd started to build community on the platform. I was asking others to jump in and also create videos. I like to think that I was also in conversation with so many different people. So that's where the Oprah, who is so known for being an amazing conversationalist and someone that builds community around her, that's where that name came from. So I'm very thankful that press called me that. And it's so funny because then internally at LinkedIn, they started using that nickname for me. And then other press picked it up. And then, as you know, it's just like in your childhood when you get a nickname and then all the kids on the block pick up that nickname. So even if you don't want that nickname, that's your nickname.
Nice. Well, you have a pretty powerful name too, Goldie. Tell us about
Yes.
your name and just when you're talking a lot about branding in the
Mhm.
work that you do in your organization and your upcoming book that's coming out. So, from a brand standpoint, the name Goldie, tell us about your brand.
I love my name Goldie because I almost never run into another Asian person who's named Goldie. I
Eh,
only run into Jewish folks and Black folks named Goldie. So
That's funny.
I think it's really funny. But yes, my name comes from, I think it does come from a baby book. It means the golden one. And it is nice to have a unique name. It wasn't nice growing up, of course, because as a kid, you want the most regular name because
That's
the
right.
kids will
So
make
you
fun
can
of
get a
you.
keychain. You can get a
Yeah,
keychain
you
that
can get a
says your name.
keychain. I could never get a keychain at Disneyland. But now I really appreciate having a very unique first name because it's memorable. And then if you're watching, if you're watching this instead of listening to it, you'll see that also I have green hair. So it becomes a memorable thing that I'm named Goldie and then I have green hair, and people just tend to remember that about me a little bit more.
All right, so let's go to the green hair because I can't
Yes.
just go by and you've got green hair and you're traveling in all these different spaces. It's a part of your brand. So tell us about the green hair, which looks like the microphone is green too. I don't know.
Yep. Yeah, I will lift this up and hopefully it's not too bad sounding. Woo! Here's the green
Oh,
microphone. So
very
it's a
cool.
green cover of the microphone. Yeah, so I have green hair. I actually have gone through so many different hair colors over the years. I love having colored hair. Some people are just colored hair people, let's be real.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's funny because I grew up around the Oakland area in California, and I just remember seeing all these like older women who had just like beautiful, stunning hair colors, and I just thought, oh, someday I hope to do that, right? When you see it as a kid, and you're not allowed to do it as a kid, but then you're like, when I grow up, I want to do that. And so when I grew up, I was able to dye my own hair, and I went through all these different colors. I think I did red. I've done peach. I've done, different shades of brown, etc. And the great irony was when I blew up on LinkedIn, I just happened. I think I'd done it for maybe a month or so. I had green hair.
mm,
Green, ironically, is also my favorite color. So I'm glad that
yeah,
that happened. But I blew up on LinkedIn. I had green hair, and people were starting to use the green heart emoji to represent me on the platform. And then I realized, oh, this is really good branding. This is like helpful branding.
yeah.
So maybe I should keep the green hair for a while, just during this very short process, because I thought I was going to make maybe 10 videos and then be done.
800 is a lot.
800 is a lot, and I'm sure as someone who works so closely with people to help them understand where they need to move in their career, sometimes your career first takes a movement without you, and then afterwards you not deal with the consequences, but you hopefully leverage the consequences or the
Yeah.
results in a really positive way. I don't know if you've ever experienced that too with some of the folks that you've worked with.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And so I love that you said yes to the green here and you went and you listened to customer feedback on what
Yes.
you're putting out. So it's very complimentary is what I wanted to say. So let's go back. Let's go
Yeah,
back. When you were
let's
growing
do
up,
it.
Goldie, what did you want to be? When you thought about what do you want to do for your career? What did you want to be?
Wow, when I thought what I wanted to be growing up, it was always teacher. And
Ah,
I always wanted to be a teacher growing up and a very classical teacher, like a teacher in a classroom teaching middle school or high school. I don't know where I got this idea, but that is what I definitely wanted to be growing up. And these days, the way that comes through is I do quite a bit of mentorship. I
mhm.
also teach courses on LinkedIn Learning. I teach quite a bit in terms of running workshops and doing all of those things. So that's how I think the teachingness comes out of my
Yeah,
person into my work is that I'm still constantly teaching, I'm still constantly educating. It just isn't what I thought of when I grew up, which was teaching was really you're sitting in a classroom
yeah.
physically with students and you're talking to them. And I'm sure you've been in that classroom too before.
Absolutely. I too wanted to be a teacher. When I was
Oh,
growing up,
yay.
that I want to be a teacher, and my mom said, "There's no money in that." And I was like, "Ah,
I will say that's so funny you say that because there was definitely an adult that took me aside. I think this was in middle school, and I said there. She was like, "Oh," she was like, because I was always a quiet child. It makes sense. My book is called Personal Writing for Introverts, but I was always a quiet child. So an adult took me aside and was like, "Goldie, what do you want to do when you grow up?" And it was very sweet of that adult to do. And I said, "Oh, I want to be a teacher." And she's like, "Goldie, there's no money in teaching.
yeah,
There's no money in teaching." And I was like, "Oh, well, that's like a sad thing to say to a kid, right? Like." But I think it's interesting that if you really want to be a teacher, as you know,
yes."
teaching will come through your bones. Like it will come through your person, and you will always end up being a teacher, just maybe not in that traditional format that you expected to be.
Yeah, that is a great point because today I do teach in my work, so
Yes,
it showed up in a very different way. So if it's
yes,
something that I agree with you wholeheartedly, if it's something that you really want to do, you're going to find a way to incorporate it into what you do. So
yes,
you've had a lot of different experiences as I read your bio, and so I
yes.
want to. So you wanted to be a teacher, and then you decided not to do it, and then what happened?
Oh gosh. So. So then I think I was so little back then, but you know what? I always wanted to be a teacher. I don't know that I ever let that go, but I will say that, life happens. So you grow up, for me, I went to college. I went to Stanford, and Stanford is full of really interesting people who are very entrepreneurial, very like think for themselves kind of people. And as I went through that process, I was actually pre-med. I was a very good Asian kid. I was like
Nice.
pre-med. I was like going to be a doctor. I actually did published research, which was very cool. But when I came out, I thought, oh, this is not for me. And, I'm 21 at the time, and I'm like, I want to do what I want to do. So I actually turned down a job in a lab, and I turned down this other job that was doing something else, I think designing CD covers at the time or
Wow.
designing album covers because I was doing a lot of art in college, and I ended up running a fashion brand for 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I was designing senior year of college. I was designing a lot of clothes. I ended up writing for this now defunct fashion site, which was so fun. And I even got to go to Fashion Week. So when I was 21, 22, I was going to Fashion Week in New York. I was sitting in that probably second row. I would say every once in
Nice.
a while I could sit in first row, but I was wearing all black, sitting in that first, second row. I remember covering the Baby Fat show, not to
I
age
remember
myself.
that. I
Yeah,
remember
but
that. Isn't
I
that Kamora Lee Simmons? Wait a minute.
Kimora Lee
Yeah,
Simmons. I
yeah, yeah.
remember carrying that, and my clothes, just by nature of where I grew up, were more urban wear, clothes and things like that. So that was 2 years of my life, and then as things fall apart, because you're 22 years old, right? So things fell apart at 22. And I remember thinking, everything's done. We're done. I'm never going to have a career again in my life because I'm 22 and everything is so dramatic. So at 22, I'm like, everything's done. I'm, depressed, sitting at home, eating ramen and peanut butter sandwiches and
Quite
playing
a visual.
Sims. Yeah, yeah. And my friends did what I like to say is a friend intervention. They stopped me and they said, you need to get a real job. Like it can be anywhere, but please be gainfully employed somewhere because you're depressed. And I was like, would a depressed person do this as I'm playing my Sims character that's literally crying on the ground? And yes, the answer is yes. The answer is yes. I wasn't in therapy at the time. But I ended up getting my first job, and that first job, which is funny how you fall into things sometimes. The first job happened to be in marketing. So I just happened to get like a marketing very junior, like the lowest person in that marketing stack was me. So I was a marketing assistant, and it started my career doing digital marketing and social media and community management and all of those things. Because once I was in that marketing funnel, then I started climbing up the ladder. So it's fascinating how your first job, which can be accidental, can lead to your career,
Yeah.
which then you choose, right? And that's, I think, the point of this podcast is talking about the driver's seat. And I think starting out, I didn't make that choice because I just got a job. But going up that ladder, all the way up to head of marketing, that was a choice that I consciously made, and I chose to climb up that ladder. And then right when I took a month off of, I think I just left a head of marketing job. I was about to look for my next head of marketing job, and I took a month off because I was pretty burned out. And I remember that's when I started making videos on LinkedIn. So ironically, that's my path was definitely like doing marketing, 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 marketing. And then I somehow ended up being the becoming the Oprah of LinkedIn. And then that leads us to now where I run my own agency. I just came out with my first book, Personal Branding for Introverts. And it's funny how your path sometimes takes a journey, that you aren't sure, like it has a little split in the road, and you
Hmm.
take this path that you're not sure where it goes. But I think those paths are really interesting and really fun.
It sounds like it's been a very interesting nonlinear path. Well, sort of with the climbing up the steps.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, what is the mindset shift? Because when you decide to get intentional about moving up and
Yes.
getting to the top of your game, top of your industry, what has to happen where you're like, okay, I'll take this marketing assistant job, but you don't stay there. You have to be
Right.
very hands-on, strategic, intentional, build key relation. There's a bunch of things that have to happen
Right.
to get these results. So what work did you do around shifting your mindset from passenger to driver?
Yeah, I think obviously when I just want to be so clear. When I started that job, clearly passenger, right? Because I just needed the job, needed to get out of the house, needed to eat less ramen. I still love ramen. But
They're not to love.
yeah, what's there not to love? But I will say when that when that mind shift shifted,
Yeah.
changed, when it changed for me was when I thought, oh, I'm actually pretty good at this. I think if I hadn't been good at it, maybe I wouldn't have had that mind shift change, but I was pretty good at it. And at work, I was doing really well. And so I thought, oh, I see what the next person up is doing, the associate, and I could do that job. I think I could learn that job. So I started learning from that person who was one level, like just one half step really above me. And I realized, like, oh, I can do that job. And then I was like, oh, wait, I think I can do my boss's job. Right.
Mhm.
And then when I started realizing, oh, I have the internal capabilities of doing that job, that's when things really clicked into place for me. Then I thought, oh, okay. So, I need to, of course, have like a year at least at this job. But after a year, maybe I can try to apply for an associate job. Maybe not at this particular workplace, but at a different workplace that would look at that year of me being an assistant and be like, oh, maybe she would be good as an associate, right? So I just took those tiny little steps up at a time. And sometimes, let's be real, we don't take steps up at all. I remember there's a couple of times where I just was doing that manager role, but definitely hopping
Yeah.
horizontally.
Mhm.
But every single time it would be for something slightly better. So whether that was just like incrementally better pay or better I suppose, better support systems, better mentors, etc. Whatever way I was rewarded in a slightly better way, even if the job title was exactly the same, I remember thinking really intentionally about how do you kind of zigzag up the at least corporate ladder at
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I spent a great deal of time in corporate, so I get it. It's not
Yeah,
always outlined where you move this step,
right. And it's so hard to move internally.
yeah, yeah, because you've got to have, you talk about mentoring, and I'm thinking about, yeah, mentoring plus sponsorship. That's a part of the equation too. Having people see your talent and say your name in rooms that you're not in, or in
Yeah.
succession planning or talent management conversations where do you get that training? You sort of
Right.
learning
And
on
I'm
the job.
sure I'm sure you have already described this in depth before on this podcast to your amazing listeners, but I think it's so helpful to describe mentorship versus sponsorship. So I'd
Yeah.
love you to describe that.
Yeah, sponsorship is a sort of a different ball game. I call sponsorship that somebody is really vested in you and they're willing to, like Carla Harris says, risk their reputation, or they're willing to
Yes.
step out and they really, really believe in you and they're willing to call your name in rooms. They're willing to
Yeah.
say, Simone is give her a chance. And if you're not getting, I had a sponsor create an opportunity, create a job for me when there was no job. And
Wow.
that was like a
Wow.
deep belief. And that was a game changer for my career
Right.
because I've had mentoring conversations, about how I can grow, but it's that extra step. It's that extra, I believe in you and I believe in you so much that I'm going to open this door. I'm going to introduce
Hmm.
you to this person and so on and so on. And it's that nurturing. It's kind of
Hmm.
like the mentor on, I don't want to say steroids, but it's more mentor plus.
Yeah, I guess when
Plus.
I think of it, if I may, mentorship to me is when you're given the information. But
Mm.
sponsorship is when you're given the opportunities,
Ooh.
right? Like, I think that is at least how I define it. I know everybody else defines it maybe a little bit differently, but mentorship, of course, is powerful because having that information when you don't have that information is very helpful. But even more helpful is what you just described, which is having someone open that door for you. And I've obviously in the course of my career, I've had people open that door for me. And I'm so, so thankful and grateful for people doing that because that kind of sponsorship is career changing. And I think it's also important that if you get to a certain point in your career, that you do that sponsorship for the people in your community who are a step below you or
Yeah.
5 steps below you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And you can do it for someone that's next to you, actually, because I
Yes,
have done that. The term that's bandied around a lot now is ally, being an ally. But also there's sponsorship too, where you have a friend or a colleague or somebody and you help them. So it
right.
doesn't always have to be somebody, a direct report or somebody lower on the totem pole than you are. But I have benefited greatly from sponsorship and wish somebody had explained this to me earlier in my career than when I found out about sponsorship.
I found out very late in my career what sponsorship even was. I
Yeah,
think because people confuse mentorship and say that mentorship should be sponsorship.
right.
And I think that's it's helpful if you separate the two because asking mentors who don't want to be sponsors to open doors, you're going to get a lot of resistance. But
Yeah,
when you find the right sponsor, that is absolutely the person you can ask to open doors because they are excited
yeah,
and willing to do that for you. They are on your team a thousand
right.
percent. They want to help you. And I know that everyone out there listening to this, there is someone who is willing to be a sponsor in your life right now to be helpful in your career. So even though it may not feel that way, the more conversations that I feel you have with people, the
Mhm.
more chances that you do of finding the right sponsor for your life and for your career.
Yeah. And I will say, when we talk about sponsorship, that it needs to be win-win. It's not just about what you can get from the sponsor.
Of
It's how
course.
do you help them? How do you,
Yes.
because, not because there's differences means that they don't need anything. So if you
Right.
look at it like a win-win, and also sometimes you just attract a sponsor. You don't necessarily have to ask. Somebody
Right.
sees something in you, some brilliance that you don't see, and like, you know what? I'm going to help this person because I can see a shiny diamond or I can see something that they're not there yet with it and I want to help them. So you don't always have to ask someone to be your sponsor too. I have
Yes.
found over the years.
I think that's so spot on. I think that when you are shining, not to be that way, but when you are shining in a very specific way and you are doing quote unquote well in your career or you have a certain set of wins, I've noticed that that definitely attracts
Yep.
sponsors in a very specific way. I mean, I will use my own career as an example. So definitely when I got called the Oprah of LinkedIn, I will tell you a lot more people were willing to be my
Be your
mentor and
friend,
my
right? Yeah.
sponsor and be my friend. You know, we use friends in quotation marks
Yes.
here, but
Yes.
be my friend because I had gotten such a massive name win, such a visible win in the press. And when those things happen, I say it's also helpful to have goals in mind. At the time when that happened, I actually didn't have goals in mind. So my goal was just ride the wave and enjoy it. But what's so powerful is if you have goals in mind when things like this happen, then you're able to use them really to your advantage. You're able to get more business for your business, or you're able to climb up that corporate ladder.
Yeah. I I receive what you're saying, Goldie, as stay ready
Stay
because
ready.
never
Yes.
stay ready because have a running list of those goals like you talked about. I love that. And so when the person pops up, you never know, or the door opens,
Mhm.
you're not having to scramble to figure out what do I really need from this because from this
Right.
person. Because a lot of people will say, "How can I help you?" And you're like, "Oh gosh, what should I ask for?" If you already have your list together, you can prioritize it and be like, "Yeah, this would be helpful for me."
That's so powerful. Wait, I want to stop and talk more about that because I think if you, and this is what I'm learning actually with my own book launch, is if you have a solid 3 to 5 asks with the project or your work or your career, etc., that you need, if you have just a small amount of very clearly defined asks, it's so helpful because you can say, okay, this person is maybe connected to this. I will ask for that connection, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe this person can help me do this particular action. So I will ask them to do this action. I think people get overwhelmed if you say, "Can you do these 5 things
Yes, they
for
do.
me?"
Yes, yes, yes. Just tell me what this makes me think of, Goldie, is people looking for jobs and then they hand their resume to someone and it's like they have to do the work to figure out how they can help you get a job. If you're more specific, there's a document called a networking brief where you actually tell people that you network with, what do you want? You tell them about yourself, and then you tell them about how can they help you. So having the information where people don't have
Right.
to think, not that people don't want to think. I found this experience in corporate America where I had to come up with solutions where I thought to myself, shouldn't they know the solution? But I had to come up with the
I
solution.
mean, that's a life thing. That's not
Yeah.
even a career thing. Is so many people, I think this is what we thought as children, right? Is that the adults knew what was
Yeah.
going on. Adults don't know what's going
Not
on.
all the
I'm an
time,
adult
sometimes.
now, and I
Yeah.
don't know what's
Yeah, yeah,
going
yeah.
on a lot of times. But I think you're right. If you can also, another thing I wanted to point out that you said, which is so powerful, is if you can have a good, like, short, we call it elevator pitch, right?
Yeah.
That short pitch about yourself, it just needs to be a couple sentences long or really one sentence. I think so many times I've met people and then I'm like, oh, what do you do? And then it's this long,
Yeah.
confusing thing, but it needs to be short because all of us have goldfish brains now and all of us don't remember. But if you tell me that you are a horse trainer, I will probably remember that you're a horse
That's a very
trainer,
good point.
right? But if I say I'm a horse trainer, but also I swim and do, I don't know, play polo, I also train in pickleball. I
Yeah, that's a big
also,
thing now.
I do this. Yeah, that's definitely the big thing. And I also do this and this, and I'm also a project manager and I do the if
Yeah.
you start going down that list, I will forget 99.99% of it, and I'll maybe remember one thing, and it's probably not the thing that you
Yeah.
want me to remember, right?
Yeah, and you'll stop listening. And I've noticed this maybe with myself. Like you stop listening a part of the story. Like you're telling your
I
everything,
hear that
and
first
it's like
word
I've
and
only
then it's
heard.
like
That's right, horse trainer. Yeah,
horse trainer. See, and you start, if you want to be known as the horse trainer, you start with horse trainer
yeah,
and you say, I'm a horse trainer and a home cook. And I bet you that everyone will remember the horse trainer
that's
part
right.
and not the home cook part.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I this conversation is so riveting. So let me. You know, you need to come back, Goldie.
I know,
Okay.
have me back. I'd be so excited. And this is, I will say this not to be very meta, but this is exactly what you're talking about in terms of peers helping peers, because you and I are peers, of course, but having a peer on, say, your podcast or featuring them on your newsletter or blog is always mutually helpful.
Yeah, yeah, I appreciate that. And I first came across you, Goldie, because I also write for Forbes, and you were
Yep.
giving one of those Forbes writer seminar, and I was like, oh my gosh, she is so authentic. I need to know her. So I remember I immediately like dropped you a line on LinkedIn, like this
Thank
was
you.
fabulous.
Yeah, and
And
I will say that was something that Forbes asked me to do. I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but I will, like unpaid, right? So Forbes was just like, hey, can you help some of our fellow Forbes contributors with their personal brands and can you do a session? And my first instinct is yes, of course, right? Because you never know how helpful you can be to somebody in a moment when they are drowning over something. And so I always hope that when I help like that, I think the worst thing that you can do is gatekeep all of your knowledge and just
mm,
say everything needs to be pay to play. Every single piece of knowledge needs to be
yeah,
pay to play. I think it's helpful to at least share some of that publicly and hopefully people will resonate with that. And like you said, you found me, you followed me. I immediately accepted your request because you said you were a Forbes contributor, which I thought was very cool. And as you know, we don't meet each other. It's very
no, we
hard for us
don't.
to meet, each
Yeah,
other. And I'm no longer a Forbes contributor, but at the time I remember it was so hard for me to meet fellow Forbes contributors. I didn't know who else wrote for Forbes.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Yeah.
it's a very small world and connections, and I've enjoyed following your journey. And
Thank
there's
you.
two things that I definitely want to talk to you about. One
Yes.
is your formula. Goldie, what is your formula as you think about all the different experiences that you've had as an entrepreneur and as head of marketing and doing a lot of different things? What comes to mind as the key ingredients when you think about being in the driver's seat and wanting to advance in your career? What is your formula for owning your career?
So I will boil down my formula. In my book, I talk about the 5 C's of personal branding. I'm not going to even go through that. We're only going to talk about one of those C's
But we got to
because
get the book.
yeah, I get the book. But I think the most important thing about being in the driver's seat is one of these, and that is confidence.
Mm,
I think so much of my career, maybe in a good way, bad way, can be attributed to having confidence in the moment that I could do the next job. Because let's
mm.
be real, did I actually know how to do some of those jobs? No, of course I didn't. And I got the job and I was like, oh my gosh, what am
Now
I
I got to
even
prove.
doing here? And now I got to prove it. Now I got to learn it. But
Yeah.
that's the thing. I think having confidence will, and I always want to define confidence versus ego. Having confidence will open those doors for you. Having ego will close open doors for you. So
Wow.
confidence to me is when you step into the room. I'll start with ego. Ego to me is when you go in a room and you shout, I am this person, right? And to me, confidence is you go into that same room and you just are
Mm,
that person.
mm,
And I think that that is why confidence is so powerful and why we as human beings, because we're still all animals, we like being near someone who feels like the leader, someone who feels confident. And I always like to tie one more word to confident, and that is calm.
mm,
Calm
mm.
confidence. Because when you hear and you're around somebody who has that insecurity, that I find is very unattractive. And of course, I've been insecure in my career and
Yeah.
been insecure in moments in time, as I'm sure you have too. But I find when I am calmly confident, that is the biggest leadership trait I can have. That's honestly almost bigger than my subject matter expertise, which I have too. But I think sometimes people will hire you, people will bring you on board because you have a level of calm confidence about what you want to do next. And that is so powerful and so attractive.
I love that. I feel like that should be the episode title. I love that.
Yes.
Yes, yes, yes. I love that so much. And so in your bio, you talk about that you're a cancer, speaking of C's, you
Yeah.
talk about that you're a cancer survivor. I imagine that had an amazing impact on your career. So can you tell us how, first of all, it's terrific that you beat cancer. I
Thank
can't say
you.
enough about that.
Yeah.
How did that impact your career and how do you protect your brand or I don't know if you had to rebound from that because there's a lot involved in that journey. So I just wonder what was the impact and then did that how did you navigate after cancer in your career?
Yeah, so I think so many people deal with invisible issues, invisible stops in their career. And I actually recently gave a talk called the Restart Talk about this. But I want to say that for me, I took off. So I got diagnosed in 2022. I took off 6+ months of my career and just off work, period. So not working at all. And in the meantime, I actually was developing this book and writing a little bit of the book. But for the most part, I was taking that time off. And the reason being is because chemotherapy is very difficult. If anyone has ever gone through chemotherapy or watched a family member, a loved one do it, it's very physically taxing.
Mhm.
And so I took that time off and I quite frankly there's always a I don't know, am I going to make it to the other side moment that you have with your cancer journey? And I feel very thankful I did. And then in 2023, 2024, I was really doing follow-up treatment that was less, I would say less bad, but still pretty bad. And it wasn't a time where I could really travel a ton. It wasn't a time when I felt really confident with opening up my business again. So I would say really last year and this year, I've restarted my career in a really specific and powerful way where I've been very purposeful about saying, okay, I'm available to hire again. I'm available to do speaking.
Mhm.
I'm available to do work again. And I've been reaching out to my contacts that I previously worked with and really restarting my career a little bit from scratch. Because when you take off that much time,
Yeah.
people forget that you exist because we live in such a fast-moving
Yeah.
world. But I've talked with so many people who have gone through a really similar journey as me, where I remember I met this young man. I gave this talk and I met this young man, and he said, I just took off 2 years of my life to take care of my dad, right? Because he wanted to be at home. He wanted to be around family, but he also needed a family member to take care of him full time. He's like, I don't talk publicly about it
Yeah.
during that time, I just took that time off. And then he's like, and when I had to rejoin the workforce, it was really difficult for me. It was really hard to restart because then I said to say I took care of my dad for 2 years. And a lot of HR is not sympathetic to that, which
Yeah.
I find really sad and shocking. And so many other people gave me these stories. I think now we're in, which makes me so sad, we're in layoff season.
Mhm.
And I've had so many people also come up to me and be like, I experienced this not health wise, but with a layoff. Like I got laid off and I've been searching for the past year plus for a new role. And I feel really disheartened by it. And it's so tough. I feel like it's so tough to get that start again. And I will say what helped me is I took all the teeniest, tiniest jobs that everyone said were below me. So you reach a certain point in your career and people are like, you're at this level, right? And I got this advice so much from people. You're at this level. Never take things below this,
Yeah.
right? Never take things below this level. Never get paid below this level. Never did this. But when I came back from cancer, I and chemotherapy, I started taking jobs that were like so many levels below me, quote unquote, because it just got me started and
Yeah.
speaking again, got me started and working again. So for all of those level jobs that were, below me, none of them were. They were at my level exactly. And I'm very thankful for all of them because those are the ones that got me restarted really in 2024
Mhm.
that have led me now in 2025 to have, close to a full roster of clients and folks I work with again and all of these things. And it wouldn't have been possible if people hadn't offered me things that they thought were below my level. And and I think if I had a really egotistical attitude about it, I would not be where I am again in my career. And I'm still recovering it. I'm still at, I would say 65 to 75% of what my career was in 2021.
Mhm.
But that being said, I'm so thankful that I'm not at 10%. I'm not at
Yeah.
20%. I'm at a place where I feel like it's growing and then hopefully in 2026, 2027 for me, those are will be the good years where I will get closer or at or above 100% of where my career was. But once again, I think to me it was so important to me to take those small opportunities and be really grateful and thankful. And for everyone who has a lull in their work for whatever reason, to consider taking those small opportunities, consider taking that survival job. And that doesn't make you less than, it doesn't make your career invalid. It is a little bit of getting back on your feet.
Mhm. Mhm. Oh, so powerful, such powerful reframing and so necessary and needed. Audience, I hope you are taking notes. There's lots of notes to be taken from today's episode. Goldie, I want to invite you to talk about the book. Tell us
Yes, thank
about
you
the
so
book
much.
before we wrap up, please.
Yes, so my book is Personal Branding for Introverts. I have a version of it right here. So Personal Branding for
Oh,
Introverts.
and
It's
it's
green.
green.
I know, I was gonna say it's green like my hair color that's like so on purpose
On
that it's
brand, on
it's
brand.
on brand and we have to hopefully if I'm writing a book on branding, it's on brand. But
Yes.
it is all about the journey that introverts can take to build their personal brands without becoming extroverts. And I think that's the number one
Mhm.
thing that I want people to take away from this book is if they read it, is that you are valid exactly as you are. Your career experience is valid. You can build a personal brand around who you are without drastically changing the way that you move through the world. But I only ask that in this book to me is the ask. The ask is that you open your heart and your mind to new opportunities and not necessarily changing you as a person, but changing the opportunities that you are open to.
Mm, so powerful. This is a must from an inclusion standpoint, because they do a lot of work around making the workplace inclusive. This
Mhm.
is so needed because so many people are being taught to be culture fit, like to change themselves to fit into a culture. And it's so, boy, this is a hot button for me. This this could be another episode. It's a hot
Yeah,
button
yeah,
because
let's do it.
I believe that this is so necessary Branding is, for me, a part of the formula. You've got to have your own brand, or you'll get lost in an organization's brand, because I've been there and you want to have your own brand. And so this is a key resource. We definitely are going to put it in the show notes. Goldie has provided an offer, a giveaway if you purchase the pre-order. So we'll get that right into the show notes. And I can't thank you enough for being on the show today, Goldie. Lots of gems that you shared with us.
Well, thank you for being in conversation with me. I know that the work that you do is so powerful and so important and so helpful. So I hope that my book makes sense also as a fold-in piece to some of the work that you do and
Yep.
some of the clients and organizations that you work with. I think to me, everything is a piece of the puzzle. So hopefully we're solving the puzzle together.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Please tell our audience how they can stay connected with you if they'd like to do so.
Absolutely. So you can always find me at goldiechan.com or you can find me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/in/Goldie.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Goldie, it was a pleasure to have you, Oprah of LinkedIn, on the Power of Owning Your Career podcast.
Thank you.
That's it for today's empowering episode. I'm Simone E. Morris, and I want you to remember that you are indeed the architect of your career. Share this episode if it sparked something in you. Subscribe wherever you listen and find more resources at SimoneMorrisEnterprises.org. Keep practicing career ownership, and I'll be right here with you next week for more transformation.